Well, for some reaction, we're now joined by Dr. Brian Sedze, who's the director of the Free Enterprise Initiative in Zimbabwe, and also Farai Maguwu, who's the executive director at the Center for Natural Resource Governance, also in Zimbabwe. Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening.
All right. I just want to get your take.
Thank you.
Starting with you, perhaps, Mr. Sedze. Judging by the two stories I've just read now, this increasing call for the removal of sanctions, it's getting louder and louder, and then the IMF coming in and almost suggesting that Zimbabwe is right on track to recover and perhaps get on an even keel. Your thoughts about this? Is Zimbabwe moving in the right direction, Mr. Sedze?
Zimbabwe is a closely controlled economy. It depends on specific individuals. It depends on specific institutions that are controlled by the political economy, that are controlled by specific individuals. Why did I state that? I state it because it is important for you to understand that most of the economic progress that has been happening has been government controlled or controlled by people that are related to government individuals. So when we say that the economy is going to make a progress because of that, it is a nullity. The nullity is basically because we are in a situation where specific individuals have to make the economy move. At the moment, it is a centralized economy, or what they call a command economy.
All right, Mr. Maguwu, what's your take? Is Zimbabwe walking in the right direction, if not running yet?
Thank you, Peter. I completely agree with Dr. Sedze. I think we have walked this road many times before, and it's been look at who is driving the hyperinflation, who is controlling the black market. It's the same people who are purporting to be bringing inflation under control. So I think in August, inflation was really skyrocketing. Goods and services prices were going up, and that's why they had to take some very drastic measures. But for IMF to say Zimbabwe is now on the right course just because of what has happened over the past 3 weeks, I think it's too early to reach such a judgment. We also look at corruption, which is the elephant in the living room in Zimbabwe, where there is the whole country is a huge crime scene. There is massive and rampant looting of state resources with impunity. No one is afraid of committing these white-collar, multi-million-dollar crimes. No one is arrested for those things. So I thought the IMF should have picked that problem, that what is causing the Zimbabwe government to fail to meet its economic targets is corruption and impunity, above all things that you can talk about, which are afflicting our economy.
I suppose also, Dr. Sedze, that one has to remember that Zimbabwe has other debts to other lenders that are in arrears. And because of this, the IMF can only do so much. So, yes, it sounds as if it's a good story, but it actually is still quite problematic.
The story of Zimbabwe is very long. In 2016, Zimbabwe was said to have made significant progress in terms of meeting the requirements of the IMF. However, Zimbabwe still has significant debt. Will Zimbabwe be able to pay that significant debt? Yes, it is 100% able to pay its debt. The only challenge that we have in our country is that resources are not being channeled to pay those debts. Number two, we do not have at the moment the competence in ensuring that we value add our mineral resources. We don't have the competence to ensure that our economy grows. We don't have the competence to ensure that our economy is able to self-sustain. I always say this, and I will say it again and again, that Zimbabwe does not need external support. It requires to manage its resources by doing two things: mining, tourism, agriculture in a sustainable manner, and value addition. Zimbabwe has billions of dollars in those things, but we do not have the competence to ensure that we are a self-sustaining economy. We are not competent enough to be paying our debts because we do not apply our resources for the correct processes, the correct systems, and the correct governance to ensure that we are able to do that. Let me just give you a typical example.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Give us that example first.
Yes, we've got a lithium resource here. It's a well sought after resource. All right. We have got diamond in this country. We've got gold in this country. But the challenge that we have is that those resources are not being channeled in the proper manner to ensure that our economy can sustain itself, our economy can be able to deliver remarkable standard of living to our people.
All right. So just to be clear, what you're saying is if the country was run properly, Zimbabwe would never have needed to get loans from anybody.
I would think so, because just getting to just one resource, which is diamond, we're probably the third largest diamond resource in the world. But it has not changed anything. If you go to Marange at the present moment, it is still a center where poverty is.
All right. Let's ask Mr. Maguwu about, because you understand minerals. I think Zimbabwe is the 8th largest producer by volume of diamonds in the world, but that's just one of the minerals. There are many minerals in the country, and citizens are probably trying to figure out how is it that we have all of this, including platinum, and it's not translating into wealth for the people. Unlike in countries like Dubai, where the oil can be seen in the lives of the ordinary people.
Well, Peter, I think it comes down to political will. We have a lot of energy to, influence or to try to influence government, but we don't make decisions. Decisions are made by cabinet, by the presidium. So if those people who sit in cabinet, who has the mandate to make decisions on behalf of the country, are making decisions for personal enrichment and for the benefit of their families, not the country, there is very little that Zimbabwe can derive from its mineral resources. So I will tell you that there are three things that has happened. Number one, it's politicization of the mineral sector. The second one is militarization of the mineral sector and securitization. Now, when those things happen in a mineral resource country, it amounts to the resource curse, the paradox of plenty, where people will use their political power their military power, their security positions, to negotiate in the name of Zimbabwe, but for personal benefit. That's what happens in Marange. That is what is happening right now with our lithium sector. And when you look at the Chinese in Zimbabwe, they are using high-tech equipment. They are mining, even in some respects, 24/7 through the night. If you look at the volume of
all right, we're struggling a little bit with his voice there. I'm hoping that his connection.
By the time we shall strategic China in the our economy.
All right, we missed the last bit of what you were saying. You're talking about China producing over a 24-hour cycle at times. If you could just finish that point.
Yes, thank you, Peter. I was saying China is using very high and top technology in the mining sector. So when they come into the country, they are also mining 24/7. And when you look at the volume of production, say at Sinomine, formerly Bikita Minerals, they are extracting about 550 tons of spodumene ore per day. And our leadership is helping them and protecting them, assisting them to ship that lithium-bearing spodumene and petalite to China for the development of China. If you listen even to government officials talking about China, you would think they are ambassadors of China in Zimbabwe. So the national interest is missing when it comes to our approach and policies towards mining. Our government, from the top to the least in government, appear like they are agents of Chinese economic interest in Zimbabwe. And that's why our communities, they are not benefiting in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of public goods like health and education. That's why our national budget is equivalent to the budget of some of the universities in the United States of America, like Stanford, which has got a $4 billion annual budget. But when you look at the volume of minerals that are leaving Zimbabwe, they are more than 15 billion annually, but we can't account for them.
All right. To both of you, to wrap this up, the other story that we're carrying tonight, and I'll start with you, Dr. Sedze. Last week we heard President Ramaphosa say that the US must drop their sanctions against Zimbabwe. We heard not so long ago President Masisi of Botswana making the same call, and now Macky Sall of Senegal using a global stage such as UNGA to also make the same call. There are huge sensitivities around this sanctions story, so I don't want to be seen to be swaying you guys in any direction, but just your thoughts about what you've heard, what sanctions mean, and what can happen if these sanctions are removed.
Peter, hello?
Yes, we
you
can
know,
hear you.
Yeah, the challenge that we have in Zimbabwe is polarization. Sanctions are a reality. The reality of sanctions is that they are captured in three ways. There is Zidera, there is OFAC, there is AGOA. Those limit Zimbabwe's economic success in the world. Our bigger challenge as a country is corruption, all right? So it is very important for us as a nation to understand that those two things impact us, but they impact us differently. But because of polarization, one party says there is no sanctions, the other party, they say there is no corruption. But the reality is that sanctions impact Zimbabwe in those three arenas that I highlighted. And corruption is a bigger cancer, but it is not the only cancer. So we need to deal with those two things in terms of our competence profile for our country.
All right. Final word to you, Mr. Maguwu.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, I also agree with those who are saying sanctions must be removed, mainly because sanctions are being used as a scapegoat to justify every act of bad governance in Zimbabwe. There are people in government, even cabinet ministers, who have stopped making any effort to perform and do what they're supposed to do to the people of Zimbabwe by hiding behind sanctions. So if sanctions are removed, I think the conversations around governance in Zimbabwe can also move in the right direction, as opposed to now where everything, blame it on sanctions. Someone loots $5 million from Kotko, blame it on sanctions. 15 billion diamonds revenues are looted, blame it on sanctions. So if they go, I think we can now come face to face and say, guys, let's do things properly.
Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed. Your insights greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Peter.
you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, so that's an update from our two commentators there. Dr. Brian Sedze, the director of the Free Enterprise Initiative in Zimbabwe, and also Farai Maguwu, who's the executive director at the Center for Natural Resource Governance, also in Zimbabwe. Calls for the removal of sanctions increasing. 3 presidents in the last few weeks have made that call. The latest, Macky Sall, in the United Nations Assembly that's currently underway, saying remove these sanctions on Zimbabwe. Our president last week, and also President Masisi of Botswana.